Right, people. I think we are live. Sorry for the delay, people. For those who were following before, I've been watching the Hyundai Archery World Cup. It's just finished streaming. It's had a pretty big day, and it is nice to see people in the chat. Hello, Shalasa. Gee, it's been a while since I last saw each other. Indeed. Wow, what an interesting World Cup that was. I wasn't planning on watching it, but I just happened to wake up and it was streaming live, so there we go. I've got quite a few things to talk about and a lot of questions, but of course, priorities, gotta watch the Koreans first, and very interesting match up there. That was a really good turnout. Some interesting surprises. We had the Malaysians shooting really well in the bronze medal match. The women were really good. We saw Perova from Russia beat Chang Hae-jin. And very windy conditions up in Antalya. So, I don't know, shooting next to a beach is more like torture to the outdoor archers. But a really, really good stream from World Archery. So, I mean, the quality of their broadcasts have been very high recently. It's getting better and better. Really good to see that the venues are great. The commentary is really good. And it's just really, really worth watching now. They've really done a good job with the broadcast. So, if you haven't already seen it, then do check out the feed from the World Archery YouTube channel or the Facebook page. So lots of interesting shooting there. So what's happening on my side? I'm still getting my stuff ready, by the way, guys. Obviously, I wasn't watching I wasn't prepared for this, but I've got a few things ready. Well, hopefully, it should work out all right. So what's happening on my side? I slept for most of the day because I've been training for most of the day. We had this. We had a pretty good session today, at the club today. The main reason why it was really good was because we actually had call it a coaching seminar. At our club, we only have 2 qualified instructors, myself and one other. So we tend to be quite overworked. It's normally one of us. It's one of us running the line, and we don't have time to shoot. It's very stressful at all times. It's fun. It's very rewarding, but it's also the sort of thing that it's work. And when people who do archery don't want to do it for work. That's one of the concerns I had. So we've been trying to get more people trained up as instructors, so that way they can teach the beginners, and we can distribute our resources more widely rather than making one person do like the instructor course every single week. So we had 2 people, and we had a guest coach coming to supervise our probationary instructors, and it was really good. So we turned up, and we were like, okay, we don't have to teach anybody. Awesome, and we were shooting, and especially the other instructor, he hadn't shot for like 6 months because either he was busy with work or he was running the line. So it was kind of unfair for him to have to give up his shooting time and what little we had in order to teach the beginners. So having 4 people available was excellent, and turning up at the club and not having to teach people was a great thing. Like I said, I really enjoy teaching people. There's a lot of benefit to it, and I think I'm decent at it. I hope so anyway. But yeah, it was a nice way to spread out the workload. And afterwards, we had a more intense one-on-one coaching seminar. So our state coaching director, she came and had a look at some of our archers. And a lot of us are, I'd say, in the intermediate stage, that we've been shooting for quite a while, but we haven't had a lot of guidance. And I would count myself as one of those, but I've probably accumulated the most experience, like from a lot of different sources. So I probably needed the least work, and in fact, I didn't need any work. The form I've been working on for the past month or so has been working exceptionally well. I need to get more range time to build it in its muscle memory, but there were a lot of things which I was doing which just worked beautifully. It felt great. I felt my shoulders and back working hard. My alignment was really good, and I was shooting very consistently. So as far as coaching goes, it was basically keep on doing what you're doing. And for the coaching advice for everybody else, do what he's doing. Like, okay, that was cool. It was nice to validate that what I was doing was good. It was also nice to validate that my understanding of archery fundamentals and technique and my coaching nuances were good. In fact, I think I now qualified, or I'm eligible to apply for the next level of coaching. So I'm a level 1 right now, and there's a bit of encouragement to get the level 2 one, which I think I can get now. But I wasn't really planning to, but doesn't hurt to do so. So I'll think about that. So yeah, that was my day. It was really good to demonstrate my technique and explain my process and mindset. And it was nice having a second experienced coach to, lead the way and explain things and validate what I've been building up over the last few years. So it was really good. One of the things which really stuck out to me in the session was that there's a comment that the people who kind of struggle more with archery tend to become better archers because they've had more time to think about what they do. Like if some people excel and accelerate within a very short time frame, like 1 year or 2 years, and then reach a high level in a short time frame, which is fantastic. But a lot of people won't reach that level within years. I mean, I've been doing archery for 7 years now, and I don't have a record to my name. I don't have a medal to my name. I've had a lot of slumps and personal challenges and club challenges, and a lot of difficulties along the way. But if people like me persist, in this process, then we stand to gain a lot more. And archery, fortunately, is not a sport where you're stuck to a time limit. You don't have to be young and healthy and fit to do archery at a high level. I mean, many of the archers are, in fact, middle aged. So it is motivating to understand that I can take my time, and the fact that I've done so has rewarded me in a lot of ways. So that's my summary of today. I'm still feeling a little sore, which is why I slept for most of the day. Been shooting for 4 or 5 hours, and I've got a competition tomorrow, or today rather. So I'm waking up, later on. I'll be sleeping a bit early today, not like last night, not this morning. So I want to get plenty of rest, and that way, I want to see how I perform tomorrow. I haven't had a chance to really shoot around with my current technique and process. I want to see if I can do well tomorrow. We've managed to gather together a decent number of club shooters to do our autumn shoot. I'm pretty sure I'm the man to beat. So it's I'm saying I'm the best here, but probably within our club, I'm probably in the best form right now. So it's my trophy to lose. So I'm not worried about winning or losing. It's about I wanna shoot with confidence. I want to get out there at 60 meters and know right away that I'm not afraid to miss the target. I'm going to hit the gold and use positive mindset and mentality to guide my process. So that's my preamble. Hello to everybody. Most of you joined me from the live stream with the Archery World Cup. And thank you to those who are joining right now. Some quick questions from Amin. What are my thoughts on Lee? Lee was the winner of the World Cup. He's definitely a very passionate military man. Very patriotic. And there is a lot of benefit to that level of discipline. Archery is such a discipline-heavy sport, and he has that discipline, which I believe comes from his training, and he could handle the pressure really well. He was facing his countryman, Kim Woo-jin, who was a world champion and everything champion. So he did a really good job in the last round to hold together. So excellent stuff from him. Hello to Shermalu. Nice to see they enjoy the videos. Greetings to Martin from Austria. And everybody else. How many people shoot at my club now? We're having around 30 people, members. But of course, we've got a lot of people visiting and shooting and coming tries and beginners and so on. Dylan, I haven't shot a 720 70-meter round for a while. I actually don't think I've shot a 70-meter. I've shot 70-meter rounds, but not the official ranking rounds. I don't think I have an official score to my record. Hello, Tony. You're in Thailand. That's interesting. Yeah, welcome. Nice to see you in Thailand. Joe from Indonesia. Very good. JR, do I take part in international trials? The answer is no. I don't qualify for a national team. I'm eligible for the process, but I'm nowhere near the standard that is required to be in a state or national team. Now, can that change? Yeah, of course it can change, but I've got a lot of work to do. Like I said, the last few years I've been doing more work at the club front, so being the club president and running things. But I'm basically restarting my growth process. So about 4 years ago, things basically stopped. I didn't train regularly. Everything just dropped to a very basic level. And for Byron, his chicken archer started right now. My results have been pretty plateauish at the moment, so nothing too impressive. But I haven't had a chance to apply a lot of my training and techniques in actual rounds. We don't run that many rounds at the club, and often it's because people don't turn up. Like we need at least 3 people to count a round. If you don't have 3 people, then the results don't count towards your rankings. So because we often have like 0 turn up, then unfortunately I can't like reach the score. And when you don't shoot regularly, you kind of lose that edge. So I still say I'm an unproven shooter. I've got a lot to prove, and the more things I do, especially now that it's winter, we go to indoor, but I don't shoot indoor. So that's something which is a little, yeah, I want to change that. But I'm letting go of my responsibilities, having more time to shoot, and therefore hopefully we'll see an improvement in my rating and my so on, and my rankings and so on. All right. I'm going to answer some of the questions while we're doing that. Actually, what we're doing today's archery juice is peach aloe vera. It's a little warm here in the room. The heat and my jacket on, so I'm trying to cool down a bit. I had a Milo before. Yeah, you see my rankings. Like I've been hovering around like for the last year. I've been hovering around a 45 rating, and then I'm going back up to like 50s. I want to jump to 55 and 60. That's what I should be doing. Considering the way I'm shooting my practice, I should be at the 60 or above. But like I said, I haven't had a chance to shoot around at the times where I feel like this is where I'm going to shoot well. And the times when I want to shoot well, it's raining or it's really windy, so it just ruins everything. So a lot of my like 47 rating scores have been like in very high wind, like 40-kilometer winds. You thought Antalya was bad, like my field is even worse. It's nasty shooting in high winds, and the score won't say that. I mean, like the results will speak for itself. But like you know when you shoot in wind, for those who keep asking for advice for shooting during winds, you accept that you're not going to shoot that well. Full stop. All right, let's go through some questions. We'll go through the Facebook ones first, and we'll go through the YouTube ones. So let's switch over to our Facebook feed. Let me just get a few windows closed, and we'll answer some questions. This will take a while, by the way. I know from last time it took like 2.5 hours. We'll answer the questions first, and then we'll see what our audience will want to do today. So, oh, Nathan, is that the Vegana Shield? Are you on an aim archery? Because I was thinking of signing up for the Vegana Shield. Is that the one you're referring to? Because I used to shoot Vegano back in 2014, 2015, but I haven't been back there for a long time. But I'm planning on shooting that round. Oh, my mistake, you for somebody else. I know why I thought you were there. All right. Question time. Let's go to the page. Bing, bing. There we go. Okay. So let's go through our questions from the live feed, or from the Facebook feed. So, first question. We'll do Assad first. Question 1. How to maintain consistency in a shot cycle? How do you develop and link together the various aspects in a practice session? What a fantastic question that is. Oh, you're Liverpool. Sorry, Nate. I don't know why I thought you were in Melbourne. Yeah, Liverpool, great. Because I was just reading an indoor advertisement. I thought, oh yeah, that must be happening right now. Of course not. It's different things. Good luck with that, by the way. All right. So where was I? Yeah. So how do you maintain consistency in your shot process? How do you link together all the different elements? That is a very good question. It was good because today in our coaching seminar we talked about just that. One thing you do is you tell your brain to focus on certain things. There are too many steps in the shot process, which you can't go through all these things. So you need to try and automatize certain steps. So things like your stance, your grip, your shoulder alignment, eventually these things become fairly repeatable. Of course, when you start out, everything is fresh and new. But once you have, that range time, that experience, then it's not going to be as hard to go through the motions. Instead, you need to focus on one thing, or one or two things, but one thing which you really need to remind yourself. It's the voice in your head telling you that this is what you need to work on. If you go through too many steps, you lose that process. Now, the story which our coaching director was sharing today was talking about, she was comparing two different archers. And we talked about mentality. So the activity was to vocalize what you are doing. So instead of shooting, you're basically actually saying what your mind is telling you. So one shooter who was doing really well was basically hit the gold, and that was all she said was hit the gold. I mean, there were some other parts that was kind of like I'm going to draw in and anchor correctly, and then I'm going to hit the gold. That was a very simple process. And then there's another person who was basically, all right, I'm going to put my feet here. I'm going to spread my feet out. I'm going to hold my grip here. I'm going to hold the string here. And in the 10-step shot process, he had like 40 steps in his mental process. And naturally, his shot is not as good as the first person. So a lot of it is to actually simplify the process in your head. Consistency happens when you don't have to think about what you are doing. You only need to think about it when you are going to, when you need to address certain things. When things are starting to break down or slip, that's when you need to kind of think about and focus on particular parts. But consistency means removing things from your consciousness. So not overthinking certain steps. I know when you first learn things, you have to go about this, 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 and this. But the more natural your motions become, the less you have to think about it. And again, we go back to our come and try, our beginners, where a lot of people, they have a slowly, careful approach. And as a result, they mess everything up because they're overthinking every single step. Things like you bring it up there and you go, "Ooh, gotta be really careful to keep it straight," and then I'll anchor, and then I'm gonna shoot, and you mess it up because you basically can't process that much information. So my advice for consistency is to simplify process. Assume that most of the things that you do are going to be consistent. You don't have to think about it too hard. That's my advice. Yeah, chunking works too. It's a good way to put things together rather than like think with every individual step. Like for me, like the voice in my head simply says more power, because that's the one thing I need to work on. The reason why I say this, and I'll explain my technique in a moment. My chronic problem, especially as I get more tired, I collapse in the shot, so I don't pull through the clicker in a strong manner, especially as the day goes on towards my last few arrows. So here I am going, okay, instead of going, I'm going to draw here, and I use a two-step process. So if you watch Chang Hai-jin and her technique, I've actually adopted part of the technique in my own form, which is helping a lot. That's why today I was shooting really well, and the coach was like, "Well, do what he does." Not because everyone does it, but a lot of top shooters do this. So the reason I draw kind of halfway, and I touch my face with my knuckle or draw down here, and then I finish my shot and anchor and pull, because I'm simplifying my process. here, I actually can't draw in one motion and can shoot very well. I can do it like by miming it, but I can't do it with a bow. I can do it once or twice, but it's not consistent enough. So my mentality is break it down so that I can do smaller steps more consistently. So this to me is very hard to do consistently, especially when you're fatigued. So for me, I go get this part right, get the shoulders and back right, and then come in and finish the shot. So that's kind of what I do. So I do this, then this. My brain says power, and I power it through. More power. I keep telling myself power, power, power. Not because everyone needs to have power in their process, but because I lack power in my process. So my brain is telling me, or I tell my brain, to overcompensate by doing the very thing I need to do. So I don't think about alignment. I don't think about push-pull. I don't think about, all these other things. For me, what I think about is the one thing I need to do to finish the shot. And that is things like power, and then squeeze it through. And that just reminds me. So, yeah. You're right, John, by the way. One of the problems is that for beginners, they lose back tension when they stop. Exactly right, and that's my problem. Was I was too target focused, so I would look at the target and I would try to aim and I would stop my shot process. I lose back tension. So I always say, now look, you're on target. The reason why I do this and then this is I've described it as a bit of a run-up. I need a bit more space to work with, so rather than being precise on the clicker, which I used to be very good at, I'm actually giving myself more space to work with. I'm still very tight on the clicker, but instead of having to rely on the precision millimeter, I'm actually giving myself more space to power through. So that way I remove the stress of going through too quickly, and at the same time maintain the expansion. So I start my expand here, then anchor, align, bang, in one motion. That's my clip. But the question was, how do you maintain consistency? Chunk it, break it down into simpler, easy one-off steps. So make sure the things you can do really well, don't think about it. The things you don't do well, say 1 or 2 words to power it through, to finish the shot, to make sure you do it correctly. That's my advice for you. So that's the first question from Assad. The second question is, how do you recognize what went wrong in the shot cycle according to variation arrow placement? And again, this is actually a really good question. We answered this question in the coaching seminar as well. You examine the arrows on the target because your grouping tells a story. For example, let's say you're shooting at a target and your arrows are going vertically, okay? So you're trying to aim for the center of the target. You're going boop, 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 boop. So some high, some low. What causes the high and low? Give you a moment, chat. This is a bit of an interactive thing here, right? If your arrows are going up or down, but not horizontal, what is causing this up and down spread? There are 4 things which would likely contribute to this factor, and as an archer you need to be able to diagnose what it is. So by recognizing certain patterns and connecting the causes, what would cause a vertical displacement? I'll give you a moment to tell me while I drink my juice. So what do you think causes a vertical dispersion? Refreshing. Not much left now. I'll ration that. Alright. So, what causes dispersion? Knocking point can be a factor. However, if the knocking point doesn't change, that is actually not going to be a cause. So it's actually not knocking point. Is it a clicker point, Arjun? It can be. That's not exactly right. It can be clicker. So Nathan has it right there. Anchor point and draw length variance are 2. So anchor point has to be consistent. If this floats, then you're going to have a different placement vertically. Not necessarily horizontally, but vertically. So if this goes too high or too low, then you will have up and down movement. Draw length is also a factor. So if you change your draw length, there is more or less power in the shot. That will also affect the flight of the arrow. A stronger shot will mean a faster arrow, which means it will not drop as much. Therefore, you will still see that dispersion. Other causes. Okay. There are two more main causes here. So we have anchor point, we have draw length, we have not bow tiller, and not knocking height. Again, variation. Alright, we're not saying what causes all arrows to drop, because in between each shot, why would you shoot differently? You don't diagnose the other things. There might not be things. Not brace height either. No. These aren't what cause dispersion. They will cause a consistent problem, not a spread of problems. The main causes, technique-wise, are things like anchor point, draw length. Another thing which affects vertical dispersion is elbow position here. So if you don't consistently put your elbow in the right place, that will also change the force line, and therefore your arrow won't fly the same way. And the last factor is your bow arm. If your bow arm lifts, you change your point of aim, or your bow arm drops in the shot especially. So when it comes to that vertical dispersion, the four technical causes would be one of those things, or a combination of those things. Anchor point, elbow alignment, bow arm alignment, or what was the last one? Or it could be a floating anchor point. So it's often one of those things. Not so much the other things. Those are chronic problems, not like spot problems. So for the question for Asada was, how do you diagnose what's going wrong? You connect the cause and the effect. If the arrows are going down the target like this, then it's probably one of these four things. And you have to think about, well, you've done the shot, but what was different about this shot? And you start thinking about that. How about horizontal variation? Again, this isn't day to day, this is shot to shot. So what causes, again, same question here, what causes horizontal dispersion? Go, you tell me. What would cause this? More juice. Things like weight can affect your bow arm alignment, but weight isn't the cause. The problem is your bow arm alignment. A quick question from Kutumi. It can happen, but for top level archers, you have so much control and discipline. It's very, very unlikely to be like the one shot in an entire year where a top person might screw up the clicker. Very nice. Play hunter. So would I say for the most part, even 90% of the time, your consistency and eventually accuracy can be mostly improved through anchor draw? I didn't say that, by the way. The answer is yes, but I didn't say that. I said for this particular alignment. Yeah, look, yeah, it's the bow will cause chronic problems. All right, the bow would not be a random erratic pattern where the bow will do whatever it wants. So the bow will do what you make it do. If you point the bow in the right direction, it will shoot. There are certain things, for example, if you have a bad tune, if your arrow is like off to the side to the left, and always off to the left, it might be a stiff arrow. It might be a stiff plunger, right? So the bow is predictable. That's the key. If there is something that if you are consistent, and the groupings aren't changing, that could be the bow. But if the bow is consistent, then it's you. And most of the time for learners, it is you. Equipment is going to affect things, but in a predictable way. It is you who is the main difference here. So, what are the causes of vertical dispersion? Many people mention plucking. Absolutely. The release is most likely going to cause horizontal dispersion. That is most likely it. Anchor, to a lesser extent, yes. Torquing the bow, yes, that is definitely one thing they can do that. The other thing that's really important, again, elbow alignment. If you're going too far to the side, you pluck that way. That's a factor in. But the big thing, which a lot of people miss out, is sight picture or string picture. Whether you shoot bare bow or you shoot with sights, string picture is something which people sometimes don't look at. But if you don't recognize which part of the string you are using to align with the target, whether it's sight or bare bow, that will affect your vertical dispersion. And a lot of people actually don't remember that. They don't think about it, they just look at the target and they'll pull it back and shoot. And they'll associate the wrong cause with the wrong consequence. So the vertical dispersion is typically 2 or 3 things. Bow hand grip, so the torque of the bow, so it might slip in your hand. It might be the elbow alignment again, an anchor point. But the 2 probable causes of a vertical dispersion would be string picture, so what you see and align on target, and of course your release. Those are 2 main factors. So why we go on this discussion? Because the question from Assad was, how do you know what you've done? Like when you see your pattern on target, how do you identify what you've done wrong? That's what you do. You look at your grouping and you identify what is wrong here. Me personally, I have a very big problem with vertical dispersion. My elevation, even at long distance, is very consistent. So I know I'm not doing something stupid with my elevation, but my vertical dispersion was quite erratic, sometimes off the target. So I had to think about what am I doing wrong. And over the last month, I've toned it down. There were a couple of things: sight picture and elbow alignment here. Now I'm a lot more behind the arrow. So rather than being out here, I'm forcing it through. I'm behind the arrow and finishing the shot very clean. So I've got a much more straighter and cleaner release. And now that is also changing the point of impact in relation to my sight picture, because now I'm no longer shooting off to the side in the angle, I'm shooting much straighter. So now I have to go, well, since I no longer have to adjust my string picture to be more this way, I can go back to what it was before and shoot straighter. So that's the key. Now the point, of course, is you need to understand cause and effect. So when you look at your grouping, you think about, well, if it's vertical, it might be one of these 4 things. If it's vertical or horizontal, it might be one of these small things. Therefore, when you go to your next end, you go, well, last time I was having trouble with vertical and I feel my bow arm dropping, I'm going to now hold my bow arm straight and push forward and keep it up on the shot. So that's how you break down your shot process and how to identify the weaknesses and flaws in your technique. A couple of quick questions from chat there. Yeah, so the play hunter again. Randomness is not the equipment. The equipment to the maximum potential of your tune. Again, there are some things, for example, if you have mismatched arrows, or if you have arrows that are too stiff or too soft, then they will have a natural result on target. If your knocking point is different, if your knocking point is too high or too low, it will have a consistent pattern on target. It might not be what you want, but it is consistent. But if the grouping is inconsistent, it is you and not the bow. That is what you need to watch out for. So you can't blame the equipment here. I'm doing a couple of things here. So horizontal, I mean this, and vertical, I mean this. I'm talking about 2 different things at the moment. Yes, Nathan, the Archer's paradox is more apparent on bows without cutouts, because there's no cutout. Alright. Let's go with our next question. So next one is quick one, Edric. Why NUSensei? It's nothing to do with crossbows, by the way. Nothing to do with new. I explained the origin story a while ago. The reason for NUSensei is the NU comes from my initials as generated by my organization. So each person in my school, on the timetable, we get given a couple of letters. Now it's 3 letters. It used to be 2 letters, and my 2 letters were NU. Sensei means teacher, so I'm a teacher. So it's actually a bit of a throwback to my teaching career. Nothing too special about that, but that's the origin story. Jesse Lavelle, I'm in the market for a site for my target compound. I'll look for a few options online. I selected a few I wanted. This is a long question. What can we do here? Question is, how can you tell which target sites are made for recurves only and which can be used for compounds? Normally it says so, by the way. Compound sites are recurve for recurve. Normally you have a one particular kind of site for recurve, which is the single pin target site, whereas the compound sites tend to be much larger, have either multi-pins or single pin, or a single very large magnified lens. So visually you can normally tell what they are. They do have different threads as well. That's also one thing to keep in mind. But normally, like for target shooting, you have one kind of sight for recurve. That's a single pin iron sight or a small aperture sight or sight tunnel. Whereas compound, you have many more options. If it's a magnified lens or large single pin prism, then that's probably a compound sight. Yeah, look, talk about things still. Yeah, all the target sites are vertical adjustment bars, not pin hunting sites. Yeah, that's true. Like there's some like the mount is standard, while the compound sites and hunting sites have a much larger range of connecting points. And yeah, some sites can't work with compound bows because of the shock, but like I said, compound bow sites have large apertures and strong construction for that reason, whereas recurve sites tend to be smaller. Kyle, what should I do about pain in my fingers when shooting? I'm only using 25-pound recurve with leather gloves and feel discomfort while in the act of shooting where my fingers are numb for the following day. Okay, numbness in fingers. Okay, so a couple of things to note here. Numbness is normal. Oh, sorry, honest question there. Why is it NG? NG was taken. There are a lot of people with the same surname, so we go through certain things. It goes NG, NU, NYE, NN, NE, and so on. So it was basically a logical kind of choice to go to the next letter down. So I wasn't the first person in my last name or my initials. NG was somebody else. So the idea of numbness. You will, over time, build calluses. Yes, that's true. Left hand, right hand. You can see, like, one of my hands, my left hand has much smoother fingers. Right hand has built up the calluses over time. So, yes, calluses will form and you will get used to shooting bows, especially the string coming off your fingers. That's something which will take time. But you shouldn't feel numb. You might feel a little tingly after the first few sessions, but that will change over time. If this is a chronic problem and you feel pain, not a soreness or numbness, but actual pain, I recommend you get a thicker glove or thicker tab. That's going to be a big difference. But yeah, a bit of tingling, a numbness is fairly normal with a lot of shooting when you're starting out. That will change as long as you use proper protection. Alright. By the way, if you have questions in live chat, ask later, because I'm going to go through the prepared questions first. I won't read the chat all the time in this process. John. Yo. I've been comparing metal risers to risers of other materials and noticed that all the metal risers tend to have a much more pronounced ring tone to it. I haven't noticed this, by the way. Metal will have a certain, like, resonance, which makes sense. And if you shoot a certain draw weight with a certain material, you might find it resonates a bit more. That's just physics. Resonance is a thing. But it's not a general thing for all bows. I find that aluminium bows will probably absorb vibration better, especially for heavier draw weights. That's why people love aluminium, or aluminum for you Americans. It's popular because it's sturdy, it's solid, and it absorbs vibration quite well. But yeah, it can be metallic based on your draw weight. I find for lower draw weights, it does have a bit of a ring, but it's not something which is a problem mostly. I don't do a lot of bare bow shooting. That's just something. So at some point, I will discuss the techniques to use for bare bow shooting, things like string walking and so on. But it's not something which I would probably talk about a lot because I don't do it myself. And one of my rules is I don't make videos about things that I don't really do myself or understand. So I know some people really want me to talk about it and they refer to me. I would do that and some point in the future. But like I said, I don't practice barebow shooting, so I'm not the person to really ask. But at some point, I'll talk about that. I mean, I know what the differences are, but until I actually do it, I don't want to teach it. And this is my benchmark. If I don't know it well enough to do it myself, I'm not going to teach it. I'll mention things, but I'm not going to teach it. Sorry, for Play Hunter, I said ask questions later, but is there a range the string should be within? It should be a consistent point on your riser, okay, or on your sight. There isn't a range. It's what you pick to be consistent, as long as you're doing the same spot each time. So you don't think about, oh, it should be within this point here. The more variation there is, the greater dispersion will be. That's a fact of the matter. If you can pick a spot on the riser or on the sight or wherever you're looking that you can consistently point at every single time, that is the key. Rocket fist. I agree sometimes. I do agree. Alright. Back to my questions. Matthews. Is it better to shoot longbow straight or a little lean to the side? As long as you're consistent, really. Most people who shoot longbow will prefer a slight cant because it's a bit more natural for most people, especially for longbow, to cant very slightly. So if you see most longbow shooters, they will cant the bow. That's completely fine. Is that the correct way? It's a way which works. Straight can work very well as well, but it isn't necessary. So both styles work. It's kind of up to you, really. All right, next question. Julian, how essential do you think FOC, or front of center, is in arrow setup? Not very important for target shooting. What's more important is your spine. And you might have variation in your arrow weight or point weight, but the spine rating is far more important. Front of center is more of a thing for hunting and field, not so much for target shooting. I don't really care too much. Honest, I know you're here. I'm gonna make a video at some point covering this topic where I want to do a video on, like, you know, I do like top 10 videos on archery. I want to do like 10 baffling questions and comments I always get. And one of the questions which always baffles me is medical advice. Guys, see your doctor. See your physician. Don't ask some random Asian guy on the internet. Ask the random Asian doctor that lives near you, okay? I don't want to comment on injuries and medical advice because I'm not a medical expert. So, here's the question which I asked before. The question is, I've injured my bow hand. How much time should pass before I begin shooting again? Do I need to contact a sports doctor, or is there a rule of thumb? The answer is there is no rule of thumb. I have absolutely no idea what your hand injury is. You actually did mention it later on. You fell on your hand while riding a bike. I don't know. It depends on how much pain you have. Depends on the extent of your injury. If you have any bone damage or muscular damage. So if you have an actual injury, then you see your doctor. Okay? See your doctor. If you have concerns, see your doctor. Get their professional advice. Don't get my advice because you're asking the wrong person the wrong way. I don't know your injury. I can't assess your injury. Therefore, I can't give you advice. It's a thing, especially it's a masculine thing, I find, that if it doesn't bleed and it doesn't hurt, therefore it's fine. Look, if you're not sure, see your doctor. That's my advice. The question before from Play Hunter, is that? Play Hunter, I think I answered the question before. I'm not sure if you're going to rephrase it differently, but what you're saying is, let's talk about string picture. I mean, assuming the picture is the same, is there a point where you're just too far off to what? But I'm not sure what you mean by that, by the way. Okay, if it's consistent, if it works, then it works. You're not twisting your limb. You're not changing your bow alignment. You're not changing the way you hold the bow. It's your visual alignment and your head position which does this. So it's not what you do here which changes string picture. It is in the same place, but it's where your eyes focus and where your head's positioned. It's nothing to do with the way you hold your bow. Do I have an arrow spine chart? you look up the arrow manufacturer. So if you're buying Eastern arrows or gold tip arrows or whatever, Carbon Express, look at their website, search up their chart, because their charts are right for their arrows. There is no universal chart for all arrows. All the shops will consult the official charts from the manufacturer. So look it up yourself. You don't need a composite spine chart. There is no such thing as that. All right, next question. Going through. When it will stop raining? It was pretty good today, by the way. What time am I streaming now? And hey, honest. I'll do this question later. What games do I play? I might do this question a bit later. We'll do the archery stuff first. We'll do the general questions later. So I can't answer this. It's not right now. All right, let's go to the YouTube questions. All right, so what got me into archery? Easy answer. I was never interested in the first place. I'm one of those people who probably liked an archer class, but I don't play archer in most games. I like archer because it's kind of exotic, but I like playing healer. I like playing support rather than the archer class. But the thing, why did I get into archery? The club's next to my workplace. So one of my friends called me up and said, "Hey, there's a club next to your workplace." And I said, "No, there's not." And there was. So we tried it out. It was something like I never had an interest in archery. So when people talk about passion and, following your dreams, archery was never my passion. And arguably, it's not as strong. I can't say it's not a passion, but I don't feel attached to archery that much. But what I felt attached to was that physical and mental focus. Archery is something which I grew into. I didn't want to do it. I grew into it, and it became something I wanted to do. The reason is I don't like sports in general. I find sports to be too competitive. I find, especially team sports, the culture of team sports doesn't suit me. I'm an individualistic person. I like being accountable for everything I do. So I don't want to blame an opponent or blame a teammate. I want to own everything and be like that one person who's responsible and accountable for what I do. And archery is that kind of sport. Even something like tennis, it's adversarial, so you're facing somebody else. In archery, the only opponent is yourself. That's what drew me to continue with archery. Like I said, I did it because it was a random thing, which we'll try it out, and I stuck with it because it is an individual sport, and it's all you. Some more questions in chat there. Do I need a license to bring your archery gear with you? No, you don't, Zurami. Archery equipment is not prohibited. At best or at worst, you may need to prove that you are bringing it as sports equipment. So you might have a membership card or something, but you don't. It's not a restricted piece of equipment when you're traveling. Is it cold in Victoria? The answer is it's cooling down. I mean, the last few days have been warm, but we're reaching the end of autumn, the beginning of winter, so it's not exactly cold. Yeah, as the others have said, it's sporting equipment, so it wouldn't count as anything restricted. All right, next question. You have a large bust. Interesting. Do you have any advice for both compound and recurve shooting? I have a video, Josette, called "Advice for Women," where I give my advice for women. When as a a professional female, I know a lot about women. No, maybe not. General things. Chest guards, you need a chest guard, definitely. Sports bras, chest guards, extra layers will help. A couple other things you can do. One is to open your stance, so that way there's more chest clearance. Second thing is to draw into your chest. So rather than draw around and catching your chest, you draw into your chest. So you draw towards the side here. Watch the way that if you watch the World Cup, you can see the professional women, the way they shoot. A lot of them draw very straight towards inside here, so that way there's less chance of catching on. That's my general advice would be, draw into your chest, not around the chest. Open your stance to give more clearance. Compound is actually less of a problem. interestingly, because there's a smaller. You'd normally shoot a smaller bow, axis to axis, or axis to axle, so that it's less of a problem for compound. But for recurve, the bows are generally quite long, and therefore you will tend to hit yourself a bit more. But my advice, I mean, large busted people have a bit more of a problem, but there's no reason why you can't be large chested and also shoot well for your bow. And a lot of people do this, even at top level. A lot of the professional archers. We look at the recent winner of the last World Cup, Perova. She's fairly large in the chest as well. Rocket fist. It's because you draw close to your chest. That's why. That's a string thing. Sorry, was it in chat there? Yeah, Nathan. Yeah, draw into your chest. All right. No, Play Hunter. Like as far as I know, like look, open carry of archery equipment can be problematic. Swords are considered weapons in many jurisdictions. Bows are not. Why? Depends on the rationale and the culture of the country, right? But a bow by itself is not a weapon that can be used. It is normally disassembled and not functional without an arrow. A sword is always functional. That's why there are more restrictions on carrying swords, because they are bladed weapons which can cause harm even just from mishandling. Bows alone are not considered weapons in most places. I know in Australia, in many states, crossbows are considered weapons because they can be carried in a ready state and therefore be discharged. But compound bows and normal bows, they've for a long time been considered sports equipment or just tools. You don't really see like an accident or mass shooting with bows, and I don't want to encourage a culture where people should fear the bow. So as far as I know, Player Hunter, I don't think there's any country which actually bans bows. Some American states are banning like archery in schools because of shooting stuff. I don't know, but no. As far as I know, bows are not weapons anywhere. I guess it depends on your local and your national laws and how they restrict it. But most places, bows are considered weapons. Just a quick question here. My elbow is super hyperextendable and bends a ton when I shoot, but I still shoot high scores and pretty consistently. Is there any benefit to fix my elbow? Maybe. Player Hunter, no, they're not weapons. And I've proven this in the video, by the way. An arrow is no more weapon than a freaking pen. Okay? If you keep on thinking that you can stab someone with a butter knife, you can stab someone with your finger, alright? So, don't rationalize tools as a weapon, right? This thing that I'm holding here is more dangerous than an arrow, okay? So, no, arrows are not weapons. No more than a bullet is a weapon. It's a piece of ammunition. But you can't harm someone with a bullet, nor can you harm someone with an arrow. In the end, you already have weapons. They're called your bare hands. So, no, they're not dangerous. Hunting tips, by the way, are normally not carried on the bow. You don't carry broadheads on your arrows when you travel anyway. But who travels overseas with broadheads, right? You don't go hunting that way. You buy them locally, you carry them in a case or something. And why would you do that? Yeah, I saw that before, Player Hunter. Yeah, it depends on where what your local laws are. So, there you go. That's my response to you. I'm not even going to think about that. Next question, Jake. Not an archery question, but what made you want to teach? Good question. Call it a calling. This is there's one thing I'm very passionate about, and that is teaching. It's a calling. One of the best phrases I heard to describe my profession is teaching isn't something you do, it's something you are. And I think that speaks for itself. Whether or not I choose to be a teacher isn't really a choice I make. I am a teacher. And no matter what I do, in some capacity, I will be a teacher. You know, if I choose to retire from teaching, I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to be an instructor or something. So, naturally, I have a disposition that I want to share my passion for learning with other people. That's really what it is. There are other reasons. I mean, I find myself I find myself in an environment which I love. I love school as a kid. I mean, despite all the bad things that happen in school, I really like the school environment. And I felt that I was the right kind of person to be in the school. Now, it didn't really match. It didn't really match my personality at the time, but I've grown into it, and now I really enjoy it. So it's the sort of thing which I thrive, an environment I thrive in, and it's part of my duty to encourage other people and raise them to a level where they can succeed in life as well. So I have a lot of, altruistic motives being a teacher. But like I said, it was a calling. Before that, I was thinking about doing engineering or IT. But I think teaching was like the one which appealed to me. It's kind of like, this is what you should be doing. And that's what I did. It wasn't like a backup plan. That was my primary choice. There were some other questions before, but I'll answer questions later, guys. I'm doing the pre-questions first. By the way, Argent braces. Yes, there are rules on braces. Depends on what you are exactly referring to. Next question. It's from Krian, or CR Ryan. What are some things I can do to improve my form without using my bow? Good question. So a couple of things you can do to improve form without a bow. Use a stretching band. So get a TheraBand or a stretching band and practice using that at home. You may want to use things like a Form Master or the shot trainers. That way you can use your bow and dry fire it without damaging the bow. So shot trainers and stretching bands are the key to working on form without actually using the bow. So that's what I recommend. Zeromi has a question again from chat. What pounder should I start when I did archery? I started using the club bows, the 18, 20 pound, 24 pound. We did have a 30 pound bow, and my first bow was a 34 pound bow. That's my progression in the club. Next question from the list. I'm just reading the chat there for a moment. Let's go to our next YouTube question. I'll do the weight progression later. I'm going to give my prepared list first. What pieces of equipment do I need to get spares for when shooting Olympic freestyle? And do you have any tips for keeping strength up? Strength, like I said, do things like stretching bands. Do 15 minutes a day of stretching and you'll be building up quite well. If you're more serious, do SPTs. That's the specific physical training. Check my video on SPTs. That will basically get you up to physical condition to train for using archery. As for spares for shooting Olympic freestyle, there's no spares you really need for Olympic freestyle. The spares you need are generally spares for any competition. That includes spare nocks, spare arrow points, bring spare fletchings, vanes, glue, hot melt, whatever you need, tape. So bring your tools and bring spare parts for it's mostly for your arrows. You don't really need to carry spare anything else unless you have to have a second bow. So if you're a professional sponsored archer, you might have two bows which are equally shot in. But for a regular person, you don't need a spare bow or spare parts. Nothing on your bow will probably break. If there's anything you really need, a spare string or second string, which ideally should be shot in and configured for your bow. But there's nothing unique to Olympic freestyle which needs to be spare parts. So you don't have a spare stabilizer or anything or spare sight. You can function very well. Probably the only other thing I probably bring spares of are rests. Even with an expensive like rest, bring like cheap plastic rest as well, because if your rest breaks or screw comes off, then bring like plastic rest. Funny story, by the way. So again, one of the guys in our club, he's the guy who bought the really high draw weight bow and couldn't use it. He's struggling a lot right now for several reasons. But one thing he did, like, he keeps on buying expensive stuff. Like, he keeps on buying like in the best like size and the best rest, like expensive stuff. As much as his dad tells him to, it's like you might as well buy really good stuff. I was really frustrated with him today because he bought a Shibuya rest and the thing broke. There is by the way, I think a warranty, but anyway, the wrist broke, and I'm not sure whether the thing snapped, the screw came off, but normally when something like a wrist, like a Shibuya wrist, malfunctions or breaks, it's often user error, where you might not tighten the screw enough. That's kind of your fault. But here, instead of buying a plastic wrist, we always say for the starters, buy the $5 plastic wrist. Those things are godly. Even at top level, you don't have to buy a really fancy thing with 10 different screws. And that's what he did. And I kind of got angry because he didn't know how to use it. And it's kind of like, how to get justice. I don't know. I don't use these fancy wrists. I mean, this is an AAE, but behind the riser wrist, and had to be configured a certain way. And it's like, wow, man, it's like, I want to teach people, but I can't teach people if you keep on buying different gear every single week. Different limbs, different glove, different tab, different arrow, different clicker, different plunger, different wrist. It's frustrating. And when I started archery, I used to see people do this a lot. They just buy gear which they don't actually need. And you keep on changing things, and the coach will always be frustrated. Now, I'm the coach, and I'm getting frustrated. I would rather give him a $5 or $2 US super wrist and stick it on and keep it there for the next, 5 months. Not this flimsy arm, which is super adjustable, but he's so new and so inconsistent that he can't keep it on the wrist. It falls off the wrist. He doesn't know how to adjust it. So he's going to spend most of his time, picking apart the screws and making sure it's correctly set. And, man, it's just frustrating. If you buy something, buy it for a good reason, not because your dad tells you to. Expensive gear doesn't mean best gear, and you have to buy to your level. That's why you shouldn't buy a really advanced bow, because there's more adjustment, there's more calibration you need to make it work for you. Whereas you can buy a simple bow and make it work really well. But the accessories, man, they just buy things because you feel like it. So quick questions from the chat again. Hi Stan, I'm okay. I'm shooting pretty well actually. How are you? We've missed you actually. Does working out only directly relate to archery like SPTs, or do other exercises I just happen to be in archers like rows? Push-ups, rows are good. General fitness is good here. The thing about SPTs, they are specific to archery. So if you want to improve archery muscles, those are the things you do. There are very few exercises and activities which improve your overall strength and archery. So archery needs some focus. Play hunter game. What would you buy if you had the stupid amount of money? I already have my crazy stuff. I bought my bow. If I had crazy money, and by the way, I do have a stupid amount of money, not because I'm rich, but because I work and I spend that much, plus make YouTube stuff. So I have the money to buy dream gear. But I already have the bow I want, so I have no desire to buy more bows. If I had to buy a bow now for no particular reason, it'd be like a win-and-win Nano TFT. I really love that bow. Tried it once, really like it. But now I'm just collecting bows, things like long bows and so on. But people send me bows, I'm like, okay, sure, I'm not going to buy it then. So I don't feel the urge to buy more stuff. I already have crazy expensive things. I've got X10s, which I lose and break. I've got all the best accessories already. Probably the only thing now is buy a new bow, but I don't need a new bow. I shoot well with my current bow. I have no desire to buy another win-and-win bow or Hoyt bow because I already have one. There you go. Next question. War Thunder? Question mark. I know you've been in the chat before, awesome. That's not really a question. I'm running out of videos. I've got a few more videos for tanks. I've got 5 more tanks to cover. I'm done for War Thunder. There'll be a new patch coming up in next month or so, so I'll be covering more videos then. But what's left to cover? I've pre-recorded most of my commentaries. I need to do the voiceovers next, but there's not much left to cover. I've covered nearly every tank. All right. Next question. Was your life tough? That's a loaded question. I thought about this, by the way. I can't say my life was tough. And this is kind of the thing where people who have tough lives will not say they had tough lives. And people who had relatively easy lives will come out and say that, oh yeah, I had a really tough life. It's really subjective, right? In very, very simple terms, and I will say this. Everybody has their own battles. and we're in no position to judge who has or hasn't had a tough life. I am more fortunate than some, less fortunate than others. Let's leave it there. Question before from Play Hunter game. Could I go on vacation? Not really. I don't feel a benefit in going on vacation to Korea, Japan. Not really my thing. I wouldn't mind going on vacation. I've never been on a vacation proper. But I'm not gonna go to just see archery. Like, I'm gonna go for to compete maybe, but not to watch. I don't really feel that that satisfaction from going to watch. And I can do so at any time. It's not my concern to like whether I can afford to or not. It's whether I'm interested or not. Let's see. Griffin, I play Civ 6 and I destroyed the enemy tank. What do you make of that? Yeah, that's realistic. You can have, I don't know, depleted uranium arrows. Yeah, that's great. That's beautiful. I'm sure Lars Addis can do that. Alright, Linux, Oz. I'd like to set up a practice target in my garage, but I need something to start poor shots in the back of the shed. Would a loose hanging blanket be enough? And you've got a 40-pound recurve. In my opinion, a hanging blanket is not enough to stop a 40-pound recurve. It's pretty good at stopping things, by the way, so it could work. I wouldn't rely on a hanging blanket for a 40-pound recurve. I would probably recommend something a bit more solid, like a rubber, like have like lots of yoga mats, something like dense, something dense, like a foam or a yoga mat or like a tire material. So like dense rubber is very good for that sort of thing there. So if you can get some sort of rubber compound, that would be pretty good at stopping it. So like a rubber compound on top of another layer will form a good solid backstop. A hanging blanket, it might slow the arrow down. I still wouldn't trust a 40-pound recurve to be stopped by a blanket at close distance. I want to do Civ games at some point for the pop shots. I've got Shogun 2 filmed. I've got Diablo 1 and 2. Funny enough, I want to do a few others while I'm doing that. So back to our questions. All right. Oops, I'm gonna do that. Let's see. If you do work out, what's the best way to continue with it? Like I said before, you need a routine. You need a training regimen. Like, plan out what you want to do, Makita. It's very hard to have an exercise routine and not have a routine. For example, I don't exercise that regularly. I shoot a lot, but I don't do a lot of training in between. But if you want to have serious goals, you need a serious training plan. And that's really the secret. A lot of people will try to train and have no goal or plan. How do you expect to improve and set goals for yourself when you have no goals? So you need commitment, you need discipline. When you have no goals and no commitment and no plan, it's very easy to drop out. So you need to think about what you want to do daily, weekly. Al Tedder, favorite, least favorite tanks? Don't really have a favorite, least favorite. Aurora, I'm currently learning an archery at a club. So far, my coach has taught me how to shoot a bed recurve, as well as the Olympic recurve style while using a wooden recurve bow. So we do too. I want to buy my own bow and equipment, with having a firm budget of 1,000. Not sure 1,000 what, by the way. Help me out here, right, Aurora? Is it US dollars, pounds, euro, Australian dollars, whatever you use in Indonesia? However, I'm torn between buying a wooden recurve bow and a target recurve bow. Any suggestions? My own suggestion is you buy the bow that you want to shoot. If you intend to shoot modern recurve or modern freestyle, buy a target bow. Don't buy a wooden recurve if you intend to shoot Olympic style. If you don't intend to shoot Olympic style, then you can buy a wooden recurve. That's just general advice. Buy the bow that you want to use. Okay? There's a myth or there's a misconception where before you buy a target recurve, you need to buy a wooden recurve. No. Especially if you already have used wooden recurves at the club, don't buy your own. The point of buying your own Yeah, the point of buying your own is to own your gear, customize it, personalize it, and learn with it. Especially when you can't use one at the club. But yeah, you don't really want to buy a bow which you don't need. It's a waste of money. So buy the bow that you want to use, that you intend to use as your discipline. I had a question there from Zurami. Can you use a piece of wood for target practice? No, you can't. The reason why you shouldn't use solid wood is because there is too much deceleration on the arrow. What will happen is you will destroy your arrows. You will bend your aluminium arrows, you will lose tips, and you will splinter carbon arrows. You don't want to shoot arrows into wood. That is undesirable. Wood doesn't stop arrows very well. Depending on what wood you use, how thick it is. But arrows will go through wood. It's not safe. And secondly, when arrows hit wood, the deceleration damages the arrow. Like you can buy carbon arrows, and like one shot will break the arrow. It's a really bad idea to do so. I mean, even shooting at the ground is a really bad idea. Like you hit rock or solid earth or something, you like split an arrow. Not fun. Don't do that. Favorite archery snack? Muesli probably. Muesli bars. I don't really snack a lot, but yeah, anything that's kind of like nuts or muesli, a bit of water as well, it's completely fine. Let's see. Yeah, look, like I said, as Nathan pointed out, like I donate to causes. I don't spend money on myself. Like, you know, for me, I have the money to support people. Like Grizzly Jim, I sponsored his trip to Etah as well. So I'm not too interested. I can go myself for one or two, not a problem there. Okay, workout routines, as I mentioned before, I don't really work out that much personally. I'm not an elite shooter, but mostly like the act of shooting physically, as well as SBTs every now and then, but depends on what I do. Most of the time I don't do so. Idea from Ninja, I have the Samick Bear Hunter. Yeah, I don't have limbs, by the way. Sure, when I buy limbs, I will eventually review this. Like, it's literally like down here, right? I've had it lying around so much, it's got like dusty and stuff. I will eventually use. I keep forgetting I have it. Like, I have like, look, I've got like 10 or 12 bows. I'm getting another one sent to me like right now from China. It's a really nice IOF longbow. So I've got all the bows set up, and there are like 5 I haven't reviewed yet. And there's a Samick Bear Hunter, which now you get the Samick Discovery. I would like to set this up to shoot at some point, but I need to firstly buy limbs, buy a string, get it set up. Because here's the thing, right? The problem and the dilemma with Jim sending me this riser, as cool as it is, I have no use for it. I know people love having bows to shoot, and this is a really nice riser. It's a nice aluminium hunting style riser. Like, this is like the poor man's Black Wolf. I don't have a Black Wolf. My friend does. I borrowed his bow. If you think about what crazy bow would buy, probably a Black Wolf. But, you know, this is one heck of a riser. I really like the feel of it. I haven't shot it yet. I do have limbs, but I don't want to use my target limbs for this riser. So I want to get a good set of limbs, and I haven't decided what to do with it. Is it going to be a heavy bow, or will it be a light bow or a fun bow? So I've been really indecisive on what to do with my Samick Bear Hunter. So at some point I will use it. At some point I will review it. But I just haven't got limbs for it or string. I can make the string, and Jim owes me a string. But I can make my own string. That's good practice too. But yeah, funny enough, I actually haven't thought about what I'm doing with this yet. So it's good, by the way, really solid. But haven't reviewed it yet. Nice question. Next question. It's the last one from the list here. It's a very easy one. When setting up for target practice, is there a standard height for it? About this, I mean, I should be about, I think, 1.5 meters off the ground. That'd be probably the ideal height for a target. It's basically what it is in real life. You want to keep it level to you, but that isn't always possible depending on where you shoot. Many people therefore shoot with their target on the ground. The reason why you want to keep it at level to you is because you want to maintain your form and T shape. When you're shooting it low on the ground, then you have a problem because you have to bend down. A lot of people shoot incorrectly because they don't compensate correctly for low elevation. So that's why when you train, it's probably better to have something level to you rather than down low. You'll see, like, for example, in my backyard, when I do my videos and I shoot my horse races in my backyard, I'm shooting low on the ground. It looks really weird. I'm doing this a lot on camera, doing this. And it's correct form, but it doesn't look good on camera. And you just look way too low doing that. But you're supposed to bend at the waist and do that. And last night we had a form check where we had someone shooting a low target, and he was doing the whole shoulder thing where he was trying to get this shoulder up and this shoulder up, and it was just really weird. So yeah, shooting level at a target is good. It is good for someone to shoot level. At the same time, shooting low is also not a bad thing because many disciplines shoot low. 3D, field, they will shoot at elevated or like low targets. So if you're going to do that, you do have to know how to shoot correctly from a different position. But for regular practice, if it's level, that's ideal. The last question which I had, that was Answer's question from the Facebook page. I left it to last, but I didn't really need to, I guess. But the question was, how long do you get to play video games each week? I mean, realistically, for a day, I'd probably say, I don't know, maybe an hour or two, depending on what else I'm doing. If I'm shooting, I'm probably out all day till like 7, 8 p.m. Then I'll go home and probably snap or sleep and maybe watch a YouTube video or something. Maybe play like an hour or half an hour, depending on what I'm doing. But the more things I have to do, the less likely I'm going to play games. It's just basically like gaming is a soft activity, which means anything else will take precedence. If I've got an event happening, I'll do that first. If someone calls me out to go for dinner, I'll do that first. So gaming is a soft activity. It's a low priority. So anything else will take over it. Good example, if I have a lot of work to do, like marking exams or stuff, writing reports, as a teacher, I have to do that first. And that eats up a lot of time. So I find that as I'm getting older, I cared less about games. And this is the second part of the question, is what kind of games do I play now, knowing this time limit, right? So as a teenager in school, I would happily play online games, multiplayer games, League of Legends, the original Dota, Call of Duty. I used to love playing these multiplayer games because you get instant gratification. Whereas now, I don't care about instant gratification. I want something either that is a one-off, satisfying single-player campaign, because I don't want to spend all my time playing online games because there's no long-term benefit. So something that I can play like one-off, like I can play like an Assassin's Creed game and really enjoy the story. I can play Far Cry and be really immersed in the action game. I'm not really interested in playing a continually online game. Something like an MMO, I wouldn't play anymore. Like I used to play Guild Wars a lot, and number 2 to a lesser extent, but nowadays I wouldn't play an MMO. I just don't have the time to commit to playing something long term. Same with playing multiplayer. I don't play Call of Duty or Battlefield because there's no like progression. I mean, you have an artificial progression to ranks and unlockables, but it's all about getting prestiges, and it's an ego thing. I just want to play like back when I play games. When you go online, everything is available to you. You can have fun right away. And now there's unlocks and customizations and perks and so on, which I'm like, I don't want to spend like 40 hours unlocking things. I'm not interested in that. War Thunder, it was probably one of the last games I played because I like history, I like tanks. I don't play War Thunder anymore for that reason, because it's repetitive online numbers. I am the completionist player, so I play a game to completion. And for me, completion in War Thunder was unlocking every tank, which I've done so far, mostly through the partner program. But I've got every tank. I've played every tank. Therefore, I've completed my goals for War Thunder. All now I do is just record commentaries and tips and guides. But I don't want to make guides. I don't want to play War Thunder. I don't find it fun anymore. So now it's like a work thing where I want to, as completionist, I want to cover every vehicle. So I don't play War Thunder anymore. And games like War Thunder, I might try it for a short time, but I have no more interest in playing games like, or streaming games, because, like I said, for me, it's either going to be something I can play as a one-off or something I invest in a single-player game. For example, like I play a lot of Hearts of Iron, and mostly single player. I play with my friends sometimes. If I play with friends, that's different. But the other factor for me is, as my friends we've kind of drifted apart, and they don't play online games anymore. There's no more reason for me to play an online game, unless someone wants me to play like Hearts of Iron or Civ or something. So if I have something to play with, that's different. It's more of a social experience to kind of spend time with friends. But like I said, I don't feel a satisfaction in coming back here and playing League of Legends. And a match might take like 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, if I lose the game, I have no satisfaction. Like, why should I waste my time playing with people I don't enjoy playing with? Playing games like Rainbow Six Siege, Call of Duty. It's all the same thing over and over and over again. And my question for me is, what do I have to show for it at the end of the day? Now, I'm not saying that gaming is bad and you shouldn't do it. But for me, like for a long time, especially now that I'm getting towards the my middle years, I want things to show for it, alright? And here's a good example, right? I could play lots of COD and get very high prestige, but who's going to care? Like, in real life, who will care if I'm a very high ranked player in Call of Duty? Or who would care if I'm a very high ranked, if I'm like platinum in League of Legends? Who cares if I'm global elite in CSGO? Like, I work with kids. They're like, oh my god, you're so good, you have a YouTube channel, you play games. Yeah, that's a kid. Kids are fickle, it's different, right? But in reality, will having a platinum rank in a game make me look any better in the eyes of my peers or my colleagues? Will being global elite make me more attractive to women? All right, so this comes down to priorities and values. For me, what is going to satisfy me more? Playing every day, playing 2 or 3 matches of Call of Duty or League of Legends or even War Thunder, or spending an hour at the range to improve my mental and physical well-being and fitness. So in the end, the choice is quite easy for me. I recognize that I was never addicted to gaming, but it became a big part of my life. And as things in my life started falling apart, gaming didn't help me. And because of that, I did less of it, and it becomes less a priority. I still do it. I'm still a gamer. I'm still very much in the scene, but I do it for a particular purpose, and only certain games appeal to me. I'm no longer driven to play certain games, or like to play the game all the way. I find it easier to now say, if I don't like the game, I'm not going to buy it. Best example is Battlefield. I played the heck out of Battlefield 1942. I played the mods, I played Evil Destruction, I played Modern Combat. Never played Battlefield 2. I only played Battlefield 1942. I played Battlefield Vietnam very briefly. It wasn't a very popular game back then. And that was it. Never played 2, 3, 4, Hardline, or 1. And when 5 was released, I'm like, I don't care about that. And all my students were like, wow, sir, you don't like Battlefield V or Battlefield 5? That's amazing. And I thought, well, yeah, if I was your age, I'd love it too. I would have loved to play Battlefield 1 as a kid. I mean, the reason why I love World War II, because I grew up during the time of Medal of Honor, the first Call of Duty, Allied Assault, Frontline especially on the PlayStation 2. Those were games I grew up with, and I just blown away, and I really immersed myself in World War II history. I teach World War One now, and Battlefield 1 is what everyone talks about. So that's kind of like the appeal. Whereas now, Battlefield 5, it's always been like fun. I mean, you have all these over-the-top prestiges and abilities. Well, you know what? It's a good game. It's fun, but I'm not interested in it. And I'm not obligated to buy this game or play this game. That's actually the reality of it. For example, another example, I love Total War games. I recently bought Total War Sagas Britannia. I haven't played a lot of it. It's a very simple game, but I want to cover that at some point. But I love playing Rome. I love playing Medieval 2 and Shogun 2. I always go back and play those games. Whereas I tried Warhammer, hated Warhammer. It's a good game, but it's not my sort of game. And when Warhammer 2 came out, wasn't interested. And I had no, I don't feel I need to follow trends anymore. I'm now, I have a very clear, kind of understanding of what I want to play. And now I have the urge to play, Tomb Raider, single player games, because there's a bow in it. Warframe I want to do one day, because they have a bow. They've got bows in Warframe. But yeah, the things, I don't mind paying for free to play. I don't mind freemium games, because I'm the sort of person who has the income to spend money on things I enjoy. Whereas I grew up with friends and family who are very frugal, who would never pay money for games. They would try to pirate it or play free to play as long as possible. Whereas I was a lot more lenient and liberal in spending money on games, because I don't mind that. Time for me is worth more than the money that I earn. So yeah, that's my general comment on gaming. Things have changed a lot. I've gone from long term, basically playing repetitive multiplayer experiences to trying to get something more, more worthwhile of my time, something more memorable, something that I can invest in time and emotionally in certain ways. But yeah, that's my view on gaming. That's the answer to your question. Okay, so that's the end of the formal Q&A. I will happily take questions. Then you may of course come to our club and shoot. You are of course welcome to do so. You can show off your new skills to us. Carlos, you should use the Apache string grab. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Carlos. If you do longbow and barebow, of course you can do Mediterranean grip. That's how you're meant to do it. In fact, if you do longbow, there are certain and barebow, there are certain rules which say you have to use a Mediterranean grip. But I'm not sure what you mean by Apache string grip. Talk about the thumbish hook where you kind of the pinch grip or that sort of thing. You can do that. It depends on what competition you do. But most archery competitions, you can use Mediterranean. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, no, you're right, Ben. Now, I stepped at the wrong time, perhaps. I mean, it's true. But like I said, priorities change. I mean, at my age, I probably look at a family, relationship with a family and so on. So gaming would have dropped off at some point anyway. I still do gaming as a recreational thing, but I don't take it that serious anymore. It's why I don't really want to cover gaming on my channel. I used to do Let's Plays and all that, but after War Thunder, I'm doing pop shots for the fun of it, but I'm not really interested in streaming. Apart from some other, I might stream games just for fun one day, but not too interested. Practice through Yonder. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, Mr. Flopsy, yeah, I agree. The idea of pirating games was the in thing. When I was a kid, and the internet was young and pirating games was the cool thing. Back then we had Napster, and we downloaded MP3s and tracks because there was nowhere to buy tracks individually. Now you've got iTunes and Spotify. So thanks to Napster, Steve Jobs went out and said, hey, how about we set up iTunes and you buy tracks from the record companies? It makes more sense. Now we can buy things easier. Steam, by the way, as well, or GOG. So much easier to buy a game legitimately and download it and play it legitimately. Whereas back then it was it was much harder to get game materials. Hello Jeff from the Knocking Point, nice to see you again. And Kevin, it's got so many. It's nice seeing other YouTubers come in chat. Like, I had Jim come in a few times. Jeff come in a few times, and Kevin. Really liking Kevin's stuff right now. I'm seeing more archery channels. I mean, like, one thing I kind of regret, not regret, but like, I want to see people make channels and take off. Like, I want to see someone pull off a NUSensei, basically. Remember, like, I don't know, I don't like bragging about what I do, but remember, when I started, the big guy was Jeff Kavanagh, Grey Archer, and Grizzly Jim, right? And those were the pioneers. Like, Jim was kind of later on, but Jeff Kavanagh is still a pioneer. I'm very fond of people. We had like Jimmy Blackmon, all the compound guys and trader guys. There's no recurve, no Olympic recurve, but I want to see someone pull off what I did and like make that journey. I mean, like, at my rate, I'm gonna get my silver play button, very soon, and like, it's. Why why is it only me doing this, right? Why can other people do it? I'm sure there are reasons, but I like seeing content from other people. Family, no spouse, no children. Let's say I dodged a bullet with my last relationship, and the reason why I started archery was because I dodged that bullet. That's the story in itself. I mean, there's a time and place to talk about personal things. I mean, I draw a lot on my life experiences. I'm not ashamed to talk about what I do, but like I said, there's a time and place where people, can and should talk about things, and an archery live stream might not be the best place to talk about my marital problems. I've answered the questions Rami already. It was something which someone called me out to try. My club is near my workplace. They said come and try it. I went sure, okay, and I really liked it. I answered that question about an hour ago, several times because like 5 people asked me the same question. I have no predisposed interest in archery. Like, I didn't like it to begin with. I didn't like sport to begin with. And archery was something which suited my personality and what I did. It's actually like the perfect match for my personality. I'm a completionist. I'm a perfectionist. I like being intrinsic and individualistic. So archery is something which I fell into, and I grew to really like, and it just matched me. I had no idea that I was going to enjoy it. Benjamin, I am aware of Zen archery. It's a good mindset. Like a lot of archery is about Zen. Even modern Olympic archery follows the same principles as Zen archery. It's about clear mind and of just putting yourself in the mindset, that empty mindset. It's so important in archery. I haven't read a lot about Zen archery, but we follow it even in modern competition. Oh, hi, DZ Walk, by the way. Sure, cool. I enjoyed the videos. I always read chat, by the way. It's not distracting to me because I'm trying to ask questions and answers. But this is the live Q&A now. So, yeah, lots of stuff happening there. I'm just going to scroll through a bit. Don't I miss a few things? Yeah, I saw you comment before. Cool. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to multitask and nice. Nathan makes a point here. It's kind of weird doing live streams one midnight or 1 o'clock or something. I don't sleep much as a person. I've never really been a big sleeper. As long as I have enough rest in between and wake up in the right cycles. Although I do have a comp at 10 hours. I've got to make sure I sleep before then. A few things to repair. Yeah, no, happy to answer that, Benjamin. All good. Any more questions, by the way, guys? I might end this up in the next 15 minutes. It's been like an hour and 45, I think. Hour and a half now. It's been pretty good so far. What's I need to do? Everything's good here. Yeah, one of my upcoming videos will be like baffling things that I get as a YouTuber. I've covered things like the positives and negatives of being a YouTuber, but one of the things I want to talk about is like continually baffling comments I always get. Can I make a video about budget? I already have Zarema. Have you seen my channel actually? How many budget videos have I made? All right, I've done this already. Check my channel out. Sophie, so you have a cataract in your left eye, plus you're nearsighted, so you favor your art right pretty heavily. Do you think this will affect your aiming? It will, but it shouldn't be something that is going to stop you from doing archery. Accuracy is a matter of technique. Aiming is a matter of alignment. As long as you can get your alignment and technique right, there's no reason why you can't shoot as well as anybody else. It's funny enough, archery isn't really a sport where you aim. As counterintuitive as it is, right? You don't need good eyesight to be a good archer. In fact, some of the best archers have very bad eyesight. You know, Im Dong Hwan is legally blind. You only see like through straw, basically. He can shoot fine. There are people who do visually impaired archery that aim using other methods. I heard about a blind archer. Our coaching director talked about having to teach a blind archer. And she didn't realize it was blind. Like nobody told her. So he comes in and he points out he's blind. And you don't realize how much visual cues you do to teach people how to shoot. But after about a few hours, he could shoot at 10 meters, hit all gold. So a lot of it's feel, and because you have some vision anyway, then that's beautiful. And so I don't think it's about aiming as much. It's more about like, can you align with the target? And if you can align, then you'll be fine. Can you use it up to battles for down video? Oh yeah. No, I'm still not figuring out how to do it yet. I need to figure out what to do. But you can, of course. Bromofusion, have you used B55, B50 on modern Olympic recurve? Yeah, no, like a lot of I mean, like these days, Dacron or B50 Dacron is not used on modern recurve. The reason why you don't see, I mean, Dacron was the string to use about 40 years ago, and about 1970s, 1980s, you start seeing like fast flight, and now we see like Dyneema and 825 and so on. You have all these new things, but it's you don't. The problem with Dacron is too slow, so you don't get as much velocity from the arrow. So if you measure your chronometer feet per second, then it's slower than fast flight. And because modern recurves are built to handle faster strings, you want faster speed with your arrows. Therefore, Dacron is kind of a disadvantage for a modern shooter. It works completely fine, but it's stretchy and it's slower. That's why people don't like using it on modern recurve. By the way, I started that meme of Kim Woo-jin's glasses. It's been officially recognized by Chris from World Archery. So he mentioned it in the last live stream on Facebook, and you see it on YouTube as well. So there's a commentary where like they watched the last chat from the last World Cup where we were talking about Kim Woo-jin's glasses. I started that meme. I'm the one who made that comment about his glasses, and everyone's talking about that. So we have a thing going on. Edward, I'm thinking of starting an Asian style shooting. Any pointers? How did I start? That's a really good question. That's a really good question. So how do you start with thumb style shooting? Depends on whether you have any archery experience in the first place. That's a big factor. If you're learning from scratch, everything is new to you. But if you have a preconceived notion or background or experience in archery, you have to unlearn and transfer. What I did when I found really easy to learn was like the same principles apply. You have back tension, especially that applies. Your anchor point still applies. It's going to be different. So I started with an anchor more similar to what I would do with a Western style bow. And as I learned and watched other people shoot, which for me is very hard, but I would watch Armin Hermer and see his advice and techniques. I would read and watch Justin Ma and copy him and understand what he does. So it's kind of like my learning process for me was very similar to how I did like Western archery. I'll either be shown, taught, or watch and have a combination of different sources to kind of reference. I wouldn't copy people, but I'll try to understand why they did certain things. Now, I don't have a mentor or a guide for Eastern style archery, but I've got enough background in other forms to adapt to Eastern style. Now, I don't do particularly well. Like I shoot thumb draw, but I don't shoot a particular style. I don't shoot Kyoto or Korean or Manchu style. I kind of understand the principles, but I don't actually do it. But the idea is the more people you can talk to or watch, then the more you can understand what you do. And that's really the key, is to be in a situation or find a place where you can ask and discuss. Because you need to share your understanding, your learning. That's the thing. How do I start? Basically, asking people, watching people, and eventually experimenting and finding out. Like, like for me, like my first horse bow, my first Eastern bow was from Mandarin Duck. They sent me a 20-pound bow. I went, sure, I'll try that. It's fun. I thought it's a nice starting point, and then I bought my my Mongolian bow from Istvan Toth. And now I want to get an alley bow. I want to get a mariner bow, and so I've got all these new things to work on. Vermeil has sponsored me by giving me thumb rings, so I've got things. I'm collecting my stuff, my arrows and my thumb rings and my bows. But yeah, you start by looking up what you can, reading books. Now we have video. I still don't think there's a very good like Eastern archery channel. Like there's no equivalent to like a NUSensei for Eastern archery. I think the closest would be Armin Hermer, but I don't think he makes a lot of videos, which is good. He explains concepts, though in terms of the clarity and the production value, I think you might find that it's kind of lacking, especially the audio. It has some trouble with the audio of his camera. But yeah, like if he keeps on making videos, he'll be a very good resource. Like people might find it easy to ask me to show them something, which is kind of weird. I have the power to make archery memes. Of course, I've made them. I've made memes. I'm starting to make more of the memes to share on Facebook and Twitter. So, do I shoot thumb draw instinctively or do I aim? I started instinctive shooting with thumb draw. Now I gap shoot with thumb draw, which makes a little weird sense. But yeah, I try to gap shoot more with thumb draw now. But for my first few months, I shot instinctively, which is okay with 10 meters. But now that I'm trying to aim at 20 meters and 30 meters, I'm trying to gap shoot a bit more. So I'm using the point of the arrow. And the right methods you can use to gap shoot. Gao Ying talks about like estimating and visualizing paths of the arrow. Do archers meditate? It's something which I won't say everyone does, but it's something which a lot of people do. Like meditation helps with mindset. You can't shoot with a cluttered mind. I wouldn't say archery is meditation, because people do archery differently, right? Some people do archery to relax. I don't, for example. My archery is, I like getting excited for archery, because I'm a very mellow person. I have a lot of time to myself, and I don't really have to go through all things in my mind. So when I shoot archery, I want to get fired up. I want to get warmed up and really excited. So I'm the opposite of relaxation. I relax for the shot, but I get excited enough to be warmed up and shoot with power and excitement and energy. Whereas, for me, I don't do archery to relax. I do archery to focus. Different things. But I wouldn't call archery meditation. The process of doing archery can be similar to meditation, but not every shot, and not everything you do is meditation and archery. Sometimes you have to train, and training is a meditation. So it depends on what you do and why. What is the maximum number of arrows you think most full-time archers can shoot in competition trim per day? In competition trim, 1,000. Maybe not a day, maybe like 500, 600 a day. Okay, remember, a competition is at least 140 arrows. I mean, like, you would do a 72 arrow ranking round, but a lot of competitions have 2 of them. So it's 140 arrows plus warm-ups, and plus if you're doing match play knockout, it's like maybe like 15 more or something, okay? So you would expect to shoot at least 150 arrows in competition form, just for competition. Therefore, you would have to shoot 200, 300, 400 in a day for a full-time archer. So anything less than 500 is going to be low. Like, remember, for an amateur, 1,000 a week is a pretty good number to aim for. But for a professional full-time archer, where all you do is train, then 1,000 a day is not going to be beyond them. Honestly. I mean, like, some kids who are real, like, hyperactive at archery get 3,000 a week. I mean, it's bad for you, but you have to be able to maintain a very high stamina consistency. So 100 is too low for a full-time archer. You wouldn't be a full-time archer by definition if you only shot 100 a day. You'd probably be like 400 a day or something if you're training full-time. Benjamin, what is gap shooting? I'll explain this in a very simple way. There are several ways to aim using a bow and arrow, okay? But let's say you have the point of the arrow here. This works for me here, right? Point of the arrow. The way gap shooting works, let's point behind me, okay? Let's say I'm aiming towards that flag behind me. Gap shooting is when you use the point of the arrow and you are basically measuring how far from the center of the target you'll be. I've got a better idea of what the target center is. Right here. Here's a target. Okay, so with gap shooting, what you do is because the arrow is always offset. Let me try and align this right to the camera. Okay, so what you do is that instead of aiming straight in the center, by the way, a good thing to do with bare bow shooting or gap shooting is to find your point on or your point blank, where when you draw the bow and you reach your anchor point, at what distance will you hit the target when you're exactly pointing at the middle. This is the best distance for you because all you do is go right there and you hit gold. Now, when you're shooting at a suboptimal distance, whether too far or too close, you have to aim off. That's basically what gap shooting is. So for gap shooting, let's say you're shooting at a different distance. Let's go down here. Now, that would mean, to gap shoot, you would have to aim a little lower and measure exactly how far the tip of the arrow will be to the center. And to gap shoot, you have to try and get that point every single time. So you might say the gap is like maybe an inch below the gold, or maybe this far below the gold, or this far below the gold, or it might be high or something. That's gap shooting in a nutshell. So you're using the point of the arrow to predict how far you have to compensate to get to the middle of the target. That's gap shooting summarized. The other methods which are used are string walking and face walking, which we'll mention at different times. So gap shooting is easy to do visually, but because there's so many variations in like the size of the target, the size of the arrowhead, exactly where you anchor, it's not as accurate as string walking. String walking, basically, you point on all the time, but you change your finger placement on the string. So it changes the angle of the bow, as well as the amount of pressure on the string, the direction of the force, but mostly it's the angle. So that way you can have the same reference point, but you change the way you shoot. And face walking, similar, you change your facial reference point, but you keep the same point on reference. Gap shooting, it's a step above instinctive, so you're still kind of aiming by feel, but you're actually trying to measure specifically how much it will be in front of your eyes. It's a very easy way to learn how to shoot. Well, for those who are curious, the reason why the English longbows were so deadly was point on. They'd be shooting around 50 meters. So the moment like the enemy stepped in like 70 to 50 meters, you point the arrow at the French knight's helmet and he's gone. That's why they were so deadly. You don't shoot volleys with the English longbows. You could, but once you got within 50 meters, that's a kill zone. Most bows would be point on at 50 meters, approximately, from what I understand. Because they were mostly used for flat shooting, not for long range shooting, but flat shooting. And when you have an open field with 100 knights walking through, mud, point on at the French right plume, and bang, it's gone. That's the key. Yeah, no, Kevin makes a good point there. Yeah, it's 230 days, but it's about right for pros. Daily, too. Full time's different. So they'll do like weight training, they'll do form training, they'll do like arrow volume. And arrow volume is very important. Like people who train seriously, they have to keep track of how many arrows they shoot during a week. It's why you have things like arrow counters. I mean, this is this one's from XS Wings, so you can get these counters where you actually have to keep track of your shooting. So every time you shoot an end, you would record your arrow count. So you would actually, you know, punch the count each time. You would have to do this. So that way, you know how many arrows you shot in a week or your quota. If you don't do that, then you lose discipline. I've had people who like travel interstate and they want to use our club range to maintain arrow volume. These are people who are shooting at state level or national level. They have to maintain. They go on vacation, they go to visit friends, they bring their bows, they shoot with us. So people who are very serious will count how many arrows they do. That is super important because, like of anything, any training you do has to be consistent. You don't train on and off and become good at your sport. If you're a runner, you have to run frequently. You know, whether it's a long distance marathon or whether it's sprinting, you need regular training. If you're a swimmer, you have to train regularly. Weightlifting, you have to train regularly. It's commitment. And archery is very similar. Like you can't like do archery. Sorry about that, guys. By the way, you can't really do archery and expect to do well if you don't maintain a schedule or routine, especially an arrow count. And people count arrows because it's easy to maintain. It's not about, by the way, how many hours you shoot, but how many arrows you shoot. A mistake people make when measuring how much they train is it's like they say, oh, I shot 2 hours today, but was it 2 hours of shooting or was it 1 hour of shooting, you know, a half an hour finding arrows and half hour having a cigarette and a drink? That's not training. When people say I've been doing archery for like 2 years, is that every day for 2 years or every second weekend for 2 years? Because that's a huge difference. That's why people advance very differently. Relafeason, no. A 1440 round is shot in 1 day. It's 1 day. They might shoot like a double 1440, which is across 2 days. So that's 1440 one round in 1 day, and day 2 is a 1440. But you wouldn't shoot a 1440 over 2 days. It's 1 day. And nowadays we shoot, because like this 720 is a standard round, you shoot 2 back to back. You shoot 1 the first session and 1 in the second session. You wouldn't do it across 2 days. So 140 hours in a day is normal. Heck, I've done that. Like, you know, like a short round is 120 arrows. So a standard round is 140 arrows. 144, that's a standard round. It's 1 day. No, it's common. I know about you might unheard of, but it's a common thing. You don't shoot 144 hours. It doesn't take that long. It will take like, you know, depends on your schedule. It will take like 3 or 4 hours plus break. So you wouldn't shoot two of them in one day, but you shoot one of them in one day and one on the second day. So like I know our state champion, our nationals used to be a double 14-40. So you have 2 rounds, and you take your best score basically. Nowadays, because the World Archery Standard is a 720 round, which is 720 rounds, but a 720 ranking round is a short round. I mean, our shortest feeder round is like 90 arrows, so 72 arrows is too short. So a lot of events now will run back-to-back 720 rounds. So you shoot 72 arrows, have a break, then shoot a second 72 arrow round, and then you have your total score, and you're ranked by your best one. So 140 is very normal, if not expected these days. I mean, like, you wouldn't really see that at the world level for international tournaments like the World Cup. You would have your 720 ranking round, and then you have your knockout round. But for like a state or national event, a 144, a 1440 is normal. Alright, I think last questions. It's now 2 o'clock. Time to sleep, I reckon. No, that sounds like a very slow round, Roa Fizan. That we would normally do it in 1 day. I'm not sure why you would do 2 days, because the thing is that everything's set up already, so it would make less sense to shoot across 2 days, because you come back and you've cooled down. Like, people don't want to shoot 2 days. They want to shoot 1 day. They'll be warmed up and shoot across 1 day. It doesn't take that long, but depends on of course your country and the way you organize things. But normally it's 1 day. So I think your country is the exception, not the rule. Okay. I am falling asleep. It's now 2 a.m. Hopefully you enjoyed this Q&A, guys. Thank you a lot for the questions, and hopefully you learn a lot from this session. So let us call it quits for now. Good night to everyone. I might do another live stream after my event tomorrow or today. I've got a lot of work to do for school, so I might hold off on the live stream. I could do one tomorrow evening, but given I've done 2 live streams in the last 2 days, I might take it easy. I might come back the following day, the following week. Got a lot to do. But apart from that, hopefully I'll see you all soon. I am NUSensei. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.